The World Economic Forum. Who are they? What do they stand for? And where are they taking the planet? The World Economic Forum was set up in 1971 by a university professor of economics, Klaus Schwab. He quickly wrote to a bunch of governments telling them that he had an idea for the direction of the planet. Now, of course, in 2024, the World Economic Forum is a 1,000 corporate member base of the most powerful corporations on the planet. There are no sovereign governments signed up to the WEF. However, their job is to lobby the United Nations, which is 193 sovereign nations out of 195, to determine the best possible direction for this planet, for you and I. So in order to understand where this planet is going, you need to look at the white papers of the World Economic Forum. And no, they are not a government within themselves. They are simply an NGO, a non-government organization that is designed to lobby sovereign nations. The way they do that is they do it through the United Nations. That is the simplest way for the World Economic Forum to leverage its influence on the planet. The third player in this triangle is the central bankers, who are funding the entire lobbying and direction of the planet for the next decade. Everything that you are going to see is at the decree and the beckon and call of the central bank system, who are largely the funding arm of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. If one were to stop the funding, all of this would simply stop. However, as it turns out, the World Economic Forum has a white paper called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and part of that white paper is something called the Post-Scarcity Economic Model. That model is all about how humans will play no part in future society. It is a completely AI-driven system. In addition, post-scarcity economics talks about producing goods very cheaply and in most cases completely for free, because the common man will not have the means nor the ability to purchase such items. Within that model is a universal basic income and a central bank digital currency, which is fully programmed, tracked and traced. In addition, there is a digital twin city that has full carbon credits, a social credit score, and is completely governed and manipulated by AI. Your smart grid, which is the self-managed analysis reporting technology grid, is fully underpinned by a blockchain, which will manage and control all asset purchases, securities, and so on. This is how your planet will look in 5 years' time. We are going there because that is what the World Economic Forum has decided, together with the United Nations, who takes its lead from the World Economic Forum. And as I said, the central bankers will pay for it. And they can pay for it because they have printing presses and they're able to print unlimited amounts of currency, which is why you are seeing hyperinflation. People write to me all the time telling me that inflation is to do with corporations and governments. The two mechanisms which govern hyperinflation are, number one, the printing and expansion of the currency, and number two, interest rates. If we go back to the last Great Reset in 1933, in the years preceding, you only have to look at what happened to the currency and what the central bank did in response to that, which will tell you exactly where we are about to go. After the credit boom of the Roaring '20s, 10,000 smaller commercial banks started to look very shaky. By 1933, most of those 10,000 commercial banks collapsed. In 1929, the currency had gone into a negative velocity curve. Wall Street crashed, and in 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt and his administration, under Proclamation 2039, completely closed down the banking system because the common man had lost confidence in the US dollar. This caused a run on the commercial banks, where the man in the street took his US dollars back in exchange for the very commodities that sat behind the dollar, which was physical gold and physical silver, physical gold being the only asset that was left in the black. Meanwhile, in the years leading up to the closure of the banks, the Federal Reserve decided in 1932 to suddenly turn down the interest rates. They started lowering interest rates at exactly the same time they began to contract the currency supply. This move vastly accelerated the collapse. Commercial banks failed, businesses went under, mums and dads went broke, and in a desperate attempt to try to recover and save whatever was left, the United States went into a state of emergency. More banking and finance legislation was passed in 1933 virtually than any other period in US history. The creation of the Securities Exchange Commission to oversee the collapse of future stock exchanges. The creation of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to try to protect the commercial banks. The Banking Act of 1933, also known as the Glass-Steagall Act, set up and designed to separate deposit-taking institutions from investment institutions. By the January of 1934, the US economy had become even more unstable. Hence, we saw the creation of the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. This gave the power to Franklin D. Roosevelt to change the price of gold from $20.67 an ounce, which is what it was confiscated at just 9 months earlier. It was changed to $35 an ounce, which debased whatever was left of the US dollar by 59%. In an unprecedented blow to the common man, Franklin D. Roosevelt also declared that gold was now illegal to trade. The same would happen to bullion silver in the August of 1934. In the moment that gold was banned trading by the common man, the United States moved on to a silver standard. And that would stay like that right up until 1968. Gold would not be able to be traded by the common man for 40 years, right up until January the 1st, 1975, when the then non-elected president, Gerald Ford, would repeal the Gold Reserve Act, thus enabling the trading of gold. At the same time, we saw the creation of the Commodities Exchange, which is largely an arm of the Federal Reserve. This moved gold for the first time from a book price of $42.22 to a spot price. That little move saw gold jump about 1,600% by 1979. Never underestimate what your government will do to restabilize its economy. You will not recognize this world within 5 years. Your housing titles will go to a counterparty blockchain, traded only as utilities or securities. This next reset is not about the confiscation of gold. This next reset is about the loss of all fixed asset ownership, which is exactly why Beat the Reset highly recommends considering fully liquid positions. When you understand the history of where we have come from and you understand the future of where we are going, a liquid position is far more lucrative. The type of person that will survive this next monetary reset will have physical monetary commodities, preferably within their possession. These represent a zero counterparty risk. In addition, one also needs to consider digital assets, because that is exactly where this world is going. MX central bank technologies, RWA real world asset technologies, and of course Bitcoin, which will underpin the entire strategy. If you have this kind of portfolio, not only will you achieve great success across this reset, you will also establish two types of positions. One is a risk-off wealth position in physical monetary commodities. The other is a high volatile trading position in digital assets. These two work very, very well together, and they will protect you across this reset and many, many years into the future because you are well diversified. But if you were to try to traverse this reset in a fixed asset position, I personally believe that would be highly problematic. One of the greatest mistakes of investors is to base their strategy on what happened over the last 10 years. If you had done the sort of research that Beat the Reset has done regarding the next decade of investment, you would understand that having a liquid position is the most likely and plausible of all. Beat the Reset does not give financial advice, and we are certainly not suggesting that you change anything that you are currently doing. Number one, consider diversifying your assets, preferably into non-debt based assets such as physical monetary commodities and digital assets that sit outside the fiat system. Number two, learn how to assess risk. And number three, learn what counterparty is and how that can produce enormous risk and leave you highly exposed. Beat the Reset is a heavy research channel. I do not put up information that has not been highly researched and analysed. If you are listening to this, you have something called opportunity, but that window will close at some stage. If you would like to know how to transition into any of the asset classes that I have mentioned in this video, all you need to do is DM me and book a consultation directly, and I will spend an hour with you on the phone and we will get you transitioned sooner rather than later. In the meantime, if nothing else, I hope that you are looking after yourself. I hope that you are looking after your families. I hope that you continue to look after your health. That is critical. And I hope that whatever decisions you are not making for yourself, but you are making for the little people that will come to this place and the future generations of planet Earth. And most of all, make good choices.